Arsenal have just beaten Coventry City 3-0, and inside that scoreline, there is a story that goes far beyond the final whistle. Kai Havertz has scored the club's first Premier League goal of the new season. Bukayo Saka has found the net. Martin Odegaard has been named man of the match after scoring right after half-time, the same pattern he showed against Manchester City in the Community Shield. A teenager wearing the number 17 shirt, Christos Tzolis, has just walked off the pitch after a Premier League debut in front of 60,000 people, and he is smiling from ear to ear. But not everyone connected to Arsenal is smiling tonight. While the team celebrates top spot on the opening weekend table, with a +3 goal difference and 3 points from 3, one of the most important attacking players in the squad has just watched the entire match from somewhere other than the pitch, and according to people close to the situation, he still does not fully understand why. That is where we begin tonight. A perfect night on the surface, a far more complicated picture underneath it. Here is what was actually at risk in this opening fixture, and why the details around it matter so much for how the rest of the season could unfold. Arsenal walked into this game as champions defending their title against a newly promoted Coventry City side managed by Frank Lampard. A slow start, a shaky performance, or an early injury to a key player could have completely changed the tone of the title defence before it even properly began. Instead, the team delivered a controlled, dominant performance. Frank Lampard himself, standing pitch side afterward, admitted just how difficult Arsenal are to play against right now, describing a team with a high technical level and a physicality that makes them almost impossible to press. That is the sporting story. Comfortable, professional, exactly what a champion is supposed to look like on match day 1. But away from the pitch, there is a second story building, one involving a player who has given years of service to this club and the way he is currently being handled behind the scenes. If that situation is not managed correctly, it has the potential to turn a perfect start to the season into a distraction that follows Arsenal for weeks. Before we go further into exactly what is happening, if you want deeper analysis like this on every Arsenal match and every transfer story as it develops, hit that subscribe button now. This channel is built on going past the surface level reaction and giving you the full picture, so you are not caught off guard when the story shifts. Now, let us break down everything that unfolded around this Coventry win, piece by piece, so you understand exactly what is confirmed, what is still just talk, and what it all means for Arsenal going forward. Let us start with what is fully confirmed and beyond dispute. Arsenal defeated Coventry City 3-0 at home. That result put them top of the Premier League table after match day 1, with 3 points, 3 goals scored, 0 conceded, and a goal difference of +3. Coventry, on the other end of that table, sit in 20th place, with 0 points and a goal difference of -3 after their opening defeat. One popular football account summed up the mood perfectly after full time with a simple line: 1 match down, 379 to go. It is a light-hearted way of saying what everyone connected to Arsenal is thinking. This is 1 result out of 38. Nobody wins a league title in August. But you would still rather be top than anywhere else. And Arsenal have given themselves the ideal platform. Kai Havertz and Bukayo Saka were the players who found the net, giving Arsenal the cushion early, before Christos Tzolis added real spark and quality to the performance on his debut. The Havertz factor. Kai Havertz scoring Arsenal's first Premier League goal of the new campaign matters more than a single goal usually would, and here is why. Thierry Henry, watching the performance, made a point of praising exactly what Havertz brings that does not always show up on a stat sheet. Henry explained that every coach who has worked with Havertz has valued him, not just for goals or raw statistics, but for his movement, his intelligence, his pressing, and the spaces he creates for teammates. According to Henry, that is precisely why managers trust him. Then Henry said something that will likely generate plenty of debate among Arsenal supporters. He stated that Kai Havertz is, in his view, a better all-round footballer than Victor Gyökeres. To be clear, Henry was careful to frame this respectfully, acknowledging that Gyökeres is an excellent striker and a fantastic goalscorer. But his argument was about versatility. Havertz can operate as a striker, in midfield, or from the left side, and he understands how to connect the team as a whole. Henry pointed out that you can trust Havertz in a big game, whether Arsenal are up against a low defensive block or playing a high-pressing opponent, because he can be asked to run in behind or drop deep depending on what the situation requires. That flexibility, in Henry's words, is priceless. Henry closed his point by saying that some players only look impressive when they score, but Havertz contributes to the team even in matches where he does not find the net, which is exactly why Mikel Arteta values him, why his previous managers at Chelsea valued him, and why any coach would want a player like him. Arsenal, in Henry's assessment, are fortunate to have him in the squad. As an analyst, here is what stands out to me about this. This is not just praise for a goal. This is a structural argument about how Arsenal's attack functions. If Havertz offers positional versatility that a more traditional number 9 cannot replicate, that changes how flexible Arteta can be with his front line depending on the opponent. It also raises an interesting subplot for later in this breakdown, because it connects directly to a separate conversation happening about whether Arsenal even need another out-and-out striker this summer. Christos Tzolis, the debut that turned heads. If there was one individual storyline that dominated conversation around this match beyond the result itself, it was the performance of Christos Tzolis on his Premier League debut. Speaking after the game, Tzolis described the emotion of the occasion himself. He called it a really nice feeling and praised the collective performance in front of 60,000 fans. He said that from the first minute, every single player on the pitch was ready to win the match and expressed genuine happiness at helping his new team secure the win. He specifically mentioned feeling the energy from the supporters, particularly in the first half, and said that energy gave him the confidence to be more decisive with the ball. He finished by saying he hopes to carry that same feeling into upcoming matches. He also spoke about how quickly he has been able to adapt to his new environment, crediting his teammates for making things easier by finishing chances or delivering the right pass at the right moment. In his words, everything connects with everything else inside this squad. He pointed out that playing alongside players who are champions of England means operating at the highest possible level, which in turn makes it easier for a new arrival like himself to settle in quickly. He was direct in giving credit to the players around him for being at that elite standard. Mikel Arteta was just as complimentary when asked about the young winger's impact. Arteta said he loves seeing a player who has only been at the club for a few weeks already receiving that level of energy and support from the fans every time he touches the ball, and stated plainly that Tzolis has earned that reaction. Arteta praised how Tzolis has presented himself over recent matches, describing him as direct, consistently decisive, and always looking to create something positive going forward. According to Arteta, Tzolis offers an incredible variety of solutions in the final 30 metres of the pitch, including in wide areas, and has shown the ability to make the correct decision even when space is extremely tight. Arteta finished by saying he is very, very happy with him. From an analytical standpoint, this is significant for a few reasons. First, it tells you Arteta is not simply being polite in a post-match interview. The specific language about decision-making under tight spatial pressure is the kind of detail a manager only mentions when he has genuinely studied the underlying data and video, not just the highlight reel. Second, one supporter reaction online captured something worth noting, suggesting Tzolis could be the exact profile of winger this Arsenal squad needed, someone capable of directly creating opportunities through accurate delivery for a striker like Gyökeres to finish. Whether or not that specific prediction plays out over a full season, it reflects genuine excitement building around a player who was largely unknown to the wider Premier League audience before kickoff. There was also a statistical detail worth flagging here. One post highlighted that a different Arsenal player actually outperformed Tzolis statistically in this same match, recording 5 duels won and a 95% pass completion rate. That is an important reminder for any serious analysis. Individual buzz and eye-test excitement do not always match the underlying numbers, and a balanced breakdown should always acknowledge when the most eye-catching performance was not necessarily the most statistically dominant one on the pitch. The return of Wright, Odegaard, and Saka together, one of the most tactically important comments to come out of the post-match press conference, did not involve Tzolis at all. It involved something more structural, the simple fact that Wright, Martin Odegaard, and Bukayo Saka were able to play together again. Arteta was blunt about how much this trio was missed last season, admitting they did not have all three fit and available together at all across the entire campaign, estimating they played perhaps 2 or 3 games together at most. He explained that having them back changes the connection between players, describing what he called the inside unit and the outside unit working in tandem. He also singled out Havertz for special praise in this specific match, describing his individual performance as exceptional, and noted that Arsenal will need more of these kinds of individual moments given the level they are now competing at. Arteta closed that thought by saying the players have to be decisive, and stated they certainly were decisive in this performance. This matters enormously for anyone trying to understand Arsenal's ceiling this season. Injuries disrupted the continuity of arguably the most important right-sided combination in the entire squad for the majority of last season. Getting Wright, Odegaard and Saka fit and playing together simultaneously again is not a minor detail. It is potentially one of the single biggest factors in whether Arsenal can actually sustain a title challenge across a full 38-game campaign, rather than simply looking sharp in isolated fixtures. Odegaard's own words on last season. Martin Odegaard, who was named man of the match for his performance, spoke honestly about how difficult last season actually was for him personally. In his own words, last season was a big struggle, with too many injuries and what he described as a lot of weird situations. He then added a simple but telling line, saying he feels good now. There is something valuable in hearing this directly from the captain himself, rather than through second-hand speculation. It confirms, in his own words, that the disruption Arteta referenced regarding the Wright, Odegaard, Saka trio was not just a tactical inconvenience. It was a genuinely difficult period for the captain individually. Hearing him say he feels good now, paired with a man-of-the-match performance and a goal scored right after half-time, mirroring his goal in the Community Shield against Manchester City, suggests a player who may be entering this season with real momentum behind him after a frustrating previous campaign. Gary Neville's Julian Alvarez theory. Now we move into an area that requires careful separation between fact and speculation, because this is where a lot of casual analysis gets sloppy. Gary Neville offered a detailed tactical breakdown of why he believes Odegaard could reach an even higher level if Arsenal were to sign Atletico Madrid striker Julian Alvarez. Neville's argument centered on movement patterns. He explained that both Havertz and Gyökeres tend to come toward the ball and are almost always involved in possession play in the final third, rather than making the kind of slip-in runs behind the defence that Odegaard's passing range is built to exploit. Neville referenced Ian Wright's playing style specifically, suggesting that if Arsenal had a forward who consistently made those dangerous runs the way Wright once did, Odegaard would benefit enormously. Neville then stated his belief directly, saying that if Arsenal signed a player like Alvarez, he believes Odegaard would go up another level personally, because that profile of forward would suit Arsenal's style of play perfectly. Here is the critical point for you as a viewer. This is Neville's tactical opinion and analysis. It is not a confirmed transfer, it is not a bid, and it is not a negotiation. Julian Alvarez remains, as of this moment, a player at Atletico Madrid. Nothing here indicates a move is close or even formally in motion. What we do have is a reported valuation, suggesting Alvarez would cost in excess of £100 million, and a related separate discussion, unverified beyond a single social media report, referencing a possible swap scenario involving cash plus Victor Gyökeres being sent the other way. That swap detail should be treated purely as speculation circulating online, rather than a confirmed transfer structure, and it is worth noting some fans reacting to that swap suggestion online were openly skeptical, pointing out that genuine player swap deals in modern football are extremely rare. Arteta's direct response on signing a striker. This is where the story gets genuinely interesting, because Arteta was asked directly about exactly this scenario, whether Arsenal still need to bring in a striker in the mould of Julian Alvarez. His answer was measured and clear. He said he is really happy with the squad currently available to him, and that the main focus right now is on improving the players Arsenal already have, because in his own words, the club already has a lot of good things in place. As an analyst, I think this response deserves real attention, because it directly counters the growing external noise around a marquee striker signing. Arteta is not confirming interest in Alvarez. He is not confirming a swap involving Gyökeres. He is essentially saying the opposite, that his priority is development of the existing group, rather than major structural additions up front. That does not mean speculation will stop. Transfer speculation rarely does. But it does mean that as of this moment, the manager's own public position is one of contentment with his current attacking options, which includes both Havertz and Gyökeres. The Osimhen situation. Moving to a separate striker-related story, there are reports circulating regarding Victor Osimhen and a potential move away from Galatasaray. According to a report attributed to a transfer-focused source, Arsenal will not make a formal offer for the Nigerian striker unless he agrees to lower his current wage demands. That report states Osimhen currently earns more than €20 million per year at Galatasaray, a figure described as too high for Arsenal's liking. The suggestion is that unless Osimhen accepts reduced wages, a move to Arsenal will not happen, and he would remain in Turkey. I want to be completely transparent with you here. This is a report sourced from a transfer news account referencing another outlet, and it should be treated as exactly that, a report and not a confirmed fact. There is no indication anywhere in what we have covered tonight that Arsenal have made contact, opened negotiations, or reached any agreement regarding Osimhen. What is being described is a financial barrier that would need to be resolved before any move could realistically progress. Treat this as one storyline to watch rather than something settled. The Gabriel Martinelli situation. Now we arrive at the story that, in my view, deserves the most careful attention tonight, because it involves the treatment of a player who has given years of consistent service to this football club. Gabriel Martinelli was left out of the squad completely for this Coventry fixture, continuing a pattern that has now repeated itself across recent matches. Ian Wright, speaking immediately after the game, did not hold back his feelings on the matter. He said the way Martinelli is currently being treated is making him personally feel uncomfortable. He was fair in his framing, acknowledging Martinelli as not being described as the greatest player in the world, but pointing out that the Brazilian always gives 100% effort and has scored important goals for this club in the past. Wright's core argument was about process, not outcome. He said that even if the club wants Martinelli to leave, there are proper ways of handling that kind of situation, ways that should still show the player respect. Wright went further, and this is where the story becomes more serious. He stated plainly that Martinelli is not being spoken to, and that the player himself does not know what is going on. Wright was explicit in saying, in his own words, "I know this is going on." He connected this to squad depth on the wings, suggesting that if Arsenal were to bring in a player like Vinicius, Martinelli might reasonably feel he has dropped to third choice in that position, and noted that with Madueke performing well on the opposite flank, Martinelli may already be feeling that pressure from within the current squad, without any new signing even being required. Wright closed his comments by saying he simply believes Martinelli has done enough for this club, given everything he has put into this team, to be treated with a bit more respect than he currently feels he is receiving. Piers Morgan publicly backed Wright's position, stating his agreement and describing Martinelli as a loyal and important player for Arsenal across several years, one who should be treated with respect. Separately, and this next detail needs to be flagged clearly as unverified reporting rather than confirmed fact, a report emerged suggesting growing tension between Arsenal and Martinelli behind the scenes. According to that report, sources inside the dressing room described the relationship between Martinelli and the club hierarchy as increasingly distant, though it is described as low rather than completely broken. The same report claims Martinelli feels he is being pushed away from the club despite everything he has contributed, while the club itself is said to not want him to leave on bad terms, but is understood to be open to moving him on if the right situation arises. The report concludes by describing Martinelli as hurt by the situation and both sides now facing what it calls an uncertain future. I want to be very clear with you as viewers. That specific account of dressing room tension comes from a report, not from Martinelli himself, not from Arteta, and not from an official club statement. It should be treated as claimed insider information rather than something confirmed on the record. What we do have confirmed, directly from Ian Wright, who has genuine proximity to the club and its culture, is that Martinelli was left out again, and that Wright personally believes communication with the player has broken down. Here is my honest analytical take on this situation. Whatever the precise internal details turn out to be, the optics here are not good for Arsenal. You have a Gunners legend, someone who is generally supportive of this current Arsenal project, going out of his way, live and unprompted, to say publicly that a player's treatment is making him uncomfortable. That is not a minor throwaway line. Wright chooses his words carefully, and when he says a situation makes him personally uncomfortable, that carries weight. Add to that a second respected voice in Piers Morgan immediately backing him, and you have the beginning of a genuine public relations question for the club to manage, regardless of what the private, ground-level truth of the Martinelli situation actually is. If Arsenal do intend to move Martinelli on this summer, and nothing here confirms that outcome as finalised, the lesson from tonight is straightforward. The manner of a departure matters just as much as the eventual outcome itself, both for the player's own career and for how the club is perceived by supporters and by other players currently inside that dressing room, watching how loyalty gets rewarded. Frank Lampard's broader assessment. Stepping back from the individual subplots, it is worth returning to how the opposition manager summarised Arsenal as a whole after full time. Frank Lampard said you can feel it from the opposing side of the pitch, describing a team with high technical quality and high physicality, playing what he called a great way of playing. He specifically noted how difficult it is to press this Arsenal side, explaining that they will simply play through you and rip through you if you try. Coming from a manager who has just been on the receiving end of a 3-0 defeat, this is a meaningful external validation of the identity Arteta has been building. It is not just about individual moments from Tzolis or Havertz. It is about a collective structural quality that opposing coaches are now openly acknowledging within minutes of the final whistle. So where does all of this leave Arsenal after match day 1? On the pitch, the picture is about as positive as it could realistically be. A comfortable 3-0 win, a debut goal contribution level performance from a new signing in Tzolis, a captain in Odegaard who has publicly stated he feels good again after a difficult season, and a defensive spine and midfield trio finally reunited after being denied that continuity for almost the entirety of last year. Even the opposition manager is openly acknowledging the level Arsenal are playing at. Off the pitch, the picture is more complicated. There is genuine, credible concern from a figure as respected as Ian Wright regarding how Gabriel Martinelli is currently being handled. There is unconfirmed but attention-grabbing reporting about internal tension surrounding that same situation. There is speculation, and it must be repeated, only speculation at this stage, about a possible move for Julian Alvarez, something the manager himself has publicly downplayed by expressing satisfaction with his current squad. And there is a separate financial barrier reportedly standing between Arsenal and a move for Victor Osimhen. As your analyst, my job is not to tell you what to feel about any of this. It is to make sure you understand exactly what is confirmed, what is reported but unverified, and what is pure speculation, so you can form your own judgment with the full picture in front of you. Tonight, Arsenal delivered on the pitch. How they handle the situation developing around Gabriel Martinelli may end up defining just as much of the narrative around this club in the coming weeks. That is the full breakdown. If you found this useful, make sure you are subscribed, because there is clearly a lot still to unfold around this Arsenal squad before the transfer window closes, and I will be here breaking down every confirmed development the moment it happens. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.